In comparison to the over-the-top exuberance of the Baroque spectacular, the Baroque naturalists tried to paint things exactly as they saw them, and exactly as they were. The artist who's probably most associated with this movement is Caravaggio. Caravaggio is the name of the town this artist was born in. His given name was Michelangelo Merisi. And he comes to Rome as a young man, and he joins the household of a cardinal named Cardinal del Monte. And Cardinal del Monte was a sybarite. He liked to indulge his senses, so he liked to eat rich food, wear fine clothing, and surround himself with luxurious objects. And as a young man, Caravaggio painted many lush, luxurious young men for the cardinal's pleasure and for inclusion in the art of his household. The Bacchus is one of these. And so we see here a Greek or Roman story, the story of the god Bacchus, the god of wine and festivities. But he's painted in a way that he looks real. He looks like a young, attractive Italian man from the late 16th century. And he's offering us up a drink. He wants us to join him for a party. This is clearly a sensual picture, with Bacchus only half dressed and his finger in the knot of his gown, about to pull it open and disrobe the rest of the way. And everything about this, the light, the shadow, the attention to detail, is naturalistic. Later, around the turn of the 17th century, Caravaggio transitions from being a member of a household, like he was with Cardinal del Monte, to running his own studio, the mark of a successful artist in the 17th century. However, this transition also means he goes from painting primarily secular pictures to painting primarily religious pictures. Religious pictures were more valuable, and they were easier to sell. So in his Calling of St. Matthew, we see similar ideas to his previous pictures like the Bacchus, but in a religious context. So this image shows us the story of the Calling of St. Matthew. So St. Matthew was one of Christ's disciples, and he was a Roman tax collector. So we see Christ and St. Peter on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side of this painting here. And we see Christ reaching out his hand and calling to St. Matthew to leave his life as a Roman tax collector and to come be one of his disciples. If we look at the figures on the left-hand side of the painting, we can see that they look like ordinary Romans of the early 17th century. And again, Caravaggio has that attention to detail, that attention to everyday life. We also see one of the other features of Caravaggio's work here, which is an extreme contrast of dark and light, or an extreme use of chiaroscuro, that we call tenebrism. And Caravaggio popularizes this style and these kinds of extreme contrasts, and it's one of the visual hallmarks of his work. Caravaggio is also quite a controversial figure in his day. Some of his contemporaries called him the Antichrist of painting. And part of this response to Caravaggio and part of his unpopularity with other artists was jealousy at his clear talent and skill, but Caravaggio also endorsed a number of controversial positions. One of the most controversial positions he recommended is that artists not look back to the past or to past masters, that they do something new and explore their own style of working. And while Caravaggio seems to have carried this out in his life, which was quite original, we do see evidence in his work that he did look back to past masters. If we look back again at this hand that Jesus stretches out to St. Matthew, we can see a clear borrowing, a clear quotation from Michelangelo Buonarroti in his hand of Adam on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Next, we are going to talk about the art of Baroque classicism.